Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Michael Noland, and tonight we're going to ask the question, should Joe Walsh quit the Eagles? Now, before we get into that, I do want to say rest in peace to Taylor Hawkins. You know, this guy had such a magnetic personality and presence, and he was also a truly great, especially live drummer. You know, I'm a big Alanis Morissette fan, and I was aware of Taylor Hawkins backing her up. He was the second person you would notice on the stage. And of course, his work with the Foo Fighters is nothing short of magnificent. But you know, it was at the tribute for Taylor Hawkins that a lot of artists got together, and no one impressed me more than when Joe Walsh got together with some old compadres, the James Gang. In fact, he was even quoted as saying that he would like to do some further stuff with the James Gang. Oh man, talk about a classic rock fan's fantasy come true. But you know, I've mentioned in past videos, I've always been a little miffed that the mighty Joe Walsh wound up playing second git fiddle to these, well, at times, Nimrods. I mean, he's the Walsh. He's the Barnstorm. He's the James in the James Gang. And this man shouldn't be sitting backseat to no one, as far as I'm concerned. Now, you might ask yourself, in what way is he talking about this guy was ever relegated to the back seat of the Eagles band? Well, what about the fact that, contractually anyways, he was never officially an Eagles member? Now, I made a statement in another video that I think I understood why Joe Walsh was relegated to that backseat and why he did so willingly. You see, when the Eagles got back together in 1994 for their Hell Freezes Over special, Joe Walsh was brand new to sobriety. After decades of abusing and misusing every chemical known to man, this guy was hanging on to his sobriety by a thread. But that was such an important thread, and I could see how he thought about that. You know, I think that Joe Walsh saw his sobriety absolutely hinging on him being an Eagle. Now, by that, I mean the Eagles really supported this guy, and that includes Don Felder taking him, driving him personally to rehab. And as he got cleaner, it's only natural for him to have thought, well, it's the Eagles that are my support base, and I'll do anything to continue with them. Now, I don't know why Timothy B. Schmidt did not try to back up Don Felder when the Eagles illegally fired him, but I do think I understand why Joe Walsh didn't either. But you know, that also gets to my point of the video tonight. What if Joe Walsh just upped and quit the Eagles, rejoined the James Gang, started touring with them, getting a larger portion of the gate than he gets with the Eagles, and tripling that act with a couple of superb bands? This guy just might reconsider that he is truly a rock god in every sense of the word. Now, I truly think the Eagles benefited from him being there, but I don't think he got the same deal in return. Now, Joe Walsh was important to the Eagles. They knew what they had in him. When Henley and Frey decided to do a concert together, they didn't blink. They thought of Joe Walsh first. And what started out as a trio of past Eagle members playing live, and with the inclusion of Timothy B. Schmidt and Don Felder, they were back. So what happened on the nights of August 25th and the 26th in 1994? Well, as far as I'm concerned, you know what? That night was full of hope and promises. It's one of their very best concerts that I've ever seen. I loved their whole approach generally to the concert that night. The Eagles played both past hits and hits from Henley and Frey during their solo careers, and the band seemed to do its very best to highlight each and every member. But you know, if you watch the film, there are a ton of clues here that lead and give credence to Don Felder's book and his side of things, and we're going to discuss some of those tonight. So at this point, let's just ignore the fact that Timothy B. Schmidt and Don Felder were the last to be notified, and I'm even going to ignore the Munchkin manager of all time, Irving. Now, of course, I'm talking about that period of time that led up to what I consider the end of the Eagles. And that, of course, was the illegal, I'll say it again, illegal firing of Don Felder. And as far as I'm concerned, that started this evening in 1994. First of all, the film tells us, quite literally at the very beginning, that it was Don Felder and Timothy B. Schmidt being held on the line. Their manager, and especially Don Felder's manager, didn't contact them until the biggies were all taken care of. This was the greatest tug of war of let go of my ego that I've ever seen. You know, right at the outstart, we hear them listening to the orchestra that would accompany them on certain tracks. And of course, here we have Don Henley looking like his ears are hurting, him pulling on his hair and quietly mumbling. That's all the man ever does. He lets Glen the loudmouth talk for him. He's sitting there whining that the orchestra sounds like a bunch of white people. Being a white boy himself, he's such an expert on what sounds black. Now, when the concert starts, the bands are all on stools, each side by side on stage, with spotlights on each and every one of the 5 Eagles. And they start off with something that at first sounds very unfamiliar. But dig this, it is with Don Felder's playing that the audience gives a big applause to, for a piece they never thought they had heard. Of course, when the song reveals itself as Hotel California, the audience explodes. Everything is off to a great start. Now, there's another thing to note with this whole procession of songs. Don Henley is on a stool. He's not playing drums. They have somebody else behind him actually supplying percussion. Every once in a while, he'll hold a maraca or bang out a beat, I might add, on the back of a guitar, but for the most part, all the percussions that he does bother to play while on that stool are not mic'd. And in my opinion, him not being mic'd and sometimes not playing to the beat, thank God he's not mic'd, to me, this just becomes a stage prop, something for him to do to motley fool the audience into belief. But you know, it seems like he's the one that messes up the most out of all of the Eagles in their performances. He even botches one of the songs and they have to stop and start all over again. And yet he spent his time pre-show criticizing the orchestra. Give me a freaking coffee break. Now, I've said before, I've always thought of this night as a night of hope and even a possible future for the Eagles. Not only was this a marvelous concert of older material redone, but we were even given brand new Eagles songs, with Timothy B. Schmidt reaching number 8 on the Billboard Top 100 and even reaching number 3 on the adult contemporary list, one for the old fogies. But I digress. But you know, it wasn't long after this that the Eagles began touring and a whirlwind of events happened. And demands by both Glen Frey and Don Henley were absolutely ludicrous as far as I was concerned. They felt they were the main songwriters and that they should get a bigger piece of the pie. To me, that's not what a band is about. A band should be split equally. Touring monies and money's made from record sales and on, should all be split between the band members equally, with songwriters getting their extra portion because of them owning those songs. I have no problem with a songwriter getting paid for writing his stuff. Since then, for the most part, they've become nothing more than one of those rock bands out there, being nothing more than a traveling jukebox, if you ask me. But I am a fan of the Eagles. They have supplied me with immense pleasure listening to their music, as well as a couple of what you talking about Willis moments. I mean, they've been the wind in my sails and the anchor around my neck at times. You know, before Joe Walsh ever became an Eagle, I was already a Joe Walsh fan. I was a fan of both acts, and to tell you the truth, I thought they really blended well at the beginning. Of course, I was under the mistaken impression that Joe Walsh was a full-time Eagle. He wasn't, as it turned out, but I've always felt from the early 2000s up until now, Joe Walsh would have better served himself by just quitting that damn band and start doing his own thing. Now, I've seen him show up at Daryl's house, and now with him doing some of his solo stuff at this tribute and playing with the freaking James Gang, and then on top of all of that, he's talking about reconnecting with them. A fan can only hope. But here's my question to the tribe tonight, folks. What do you think? Do you like him right where he is? Do you think he could juggle things between the two bands? Or are you like me and think this guy should just quit this corpse of a band? By the way, if you enjoyed tonight's video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That helps the YouTube algorithm better identify the channel. And of course, that leads to a larger audience and the tribe grows. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, it is as easy does as hitting that subscribe to the tribe button and then tapping that top bell icon, and you too will be notified of all of my videos covering not only classic rock bands, but some of the most exciting music, or at least acceptable music, out today. And you know, right now I'm writing a couple of videos for the near future, and until I can get those uploaded, why not watch one of these? All right, guys, I'm Michael Noland. This, of course, is the bottom line. We are the tribe, and I'll see you in my next video.